In this video, we're going to be looking at the Nazi policies towards women. Now, women had made significant progress in Germany under the Weimar Republic, and Hitler in particular had really hated the progress that had been made towards the lives of women during this time. There's lots of things to do with their political position, with women over 20 given the right to vote and having more interest in politics. Economically, many women were taking up a range of new professions, and socially, women were going out and socialising, unescorted, drinking and smoking in public, and generally doing things that more traditional people, and particularly Nazis, were unhappy about. So during this video, we'll be looking at the Nazi views on women in the family, their actual policies towards women, and how effective the Nazi policies were overall. The Nazi views on women and the family were ultimately very traditional. They believed that women should adopt the role of mother and housewife, and that their key role in society was to look after men and the children. In comparison, men's role was to go out to work and provide for the family and to do jobs and to make money for the family. Now, it's key to realise that the Nazis did not believe that women were inferior to men, just that they had a different but equally important role. And in the key speeches of people like Goebbels, he makes it clear that women's role was just as vital as men, it was just remarkably different. The Nazis also had strong views on women's appearance, again in a very traditional role and linking into their beliefs about the Aryan race. But they also believed that women should adopt a natural look, which effectively meant that they should have simple tied back hair, long skirts, traditional dress, and particularly no makeup. They thought the perfect woman was blonde, wide hips, so make sure she could have as many children as possible, and athletic and healthy. That she would wear flat shoes rather than high heels, did not smoke or take any interest in politics, and crucially did not go out to work, carried out household duties, especially cooking, and bringing up the children. The Nazi views on women's employment carried on this traditional views. They thought that women should stay at home rather than go to work, that they should be focused entirely on raising and looking after the family, and that, as we said already, men should be the main person making money, and if women were to go to work, they would take men's jobs, which is not ideal for society. They particularly disapproved of women working in professions such as medicine and the law, which they felt should be held back for men. So although, having said they believed that they had an equal role, you can see that the roles were very different and in some ways very discriminatory towards women. Their views on marriage and the family continued a similar theme. The big motivation here is they wanted birth rates to increase so Germany could be bigger and stronger. In particular, they wanted a larger army. And there had been some worries in German circles that the birth rate had been decreasing in the 1920s, and they felt that to be big and strong again, they needed to increase the birth rate amongst German people. So to do this, they wanted women to marry and have as many children as possible, and we'll see later on how they tried to encourage them to do this. And they felt that women should devote their lives to feeding and raising their families, to ensure they're as fit and as healthy as possible to help the German people. They stressed the importance of women learning how to run a house and learn needlework and cookery throughout their lives to try and improve the family life. So what were the Nazi policies towards women? How did they actually try and achieve these ideals? So first of all, in 1934, the Nazis appointed a right women's leader named Gertrude Schulz-Klink. Her role was to oversee all policies towards women and make all German women working for the German state. And in fact, she talked about how women with children will become mothers of the nation, but that actually every single German woman and girl will be one of the Führer's little helpers, making it clear that it was about working for Hitler to improve Germany in general. She created a new German women's enterprise which merged all women's groups, and all other groups were banned. So all organisations that women were part of were banned, and they created this new organisation to coordinate all the Nazi groups. There were 6 million members of this group, and they encouraged Nazi ideas about women. So the fact there were 6 million suggests that there was some success in this group. And for example, by 1939, 1.7 million women had attended courses run by them on childcare, cooking, sewing, and similar things. And she said that women is entrusted in the life of the nation with a great task, the care of man, soul, body and mind, making it clear that under her leadership they are focused on supporting the men in their roles in society. So first of all, we'll look at the policies the Nazis introduced for women, marriage and the family. Now, as previously stated, the Nazis wanted to reverse a falling birth rate in Germany. Less children were being born, which in turn would mean that Germany was less strong as they had less people to work and join their armies. So, the main way they did this was through the law for the encouragement of marriage in 1933. Now, this would give a loan of 1,000 marks to couples who married if the woman quit her job. Now, in every single child they had, 25% of the loan was written off. So effectively, if a family had 4 children, they would never pay back any of the loan. And 1,000 marks was equivalent to about 8 months of wages. So a significant amount of money, and clearly a way of encouraging women to both have children and give up work. They changed the divorce laws, so men could divorce women if they couldn't have children. This links into the marriage health law of 1935, which stressed that any woman who was healthy, German, pure and fit should not remain single and should get married and have children. They also awarded the Mother's Cross for women to having children. So if a woman had 4 or 5 children, she would receive a bronze medal. 6 or 7, it would be a silver medal, and if they had 8 or more, they were given gold medals. And these medals were given out on Hitler's mother's birthday, the 12th of August, every year. And if a mother had 10 children, the mother was expected to name Hitler as the godfather of the 10th child, and if it was a boy, name him Adolf. And if you had the gold Mother's Cross, Hitler Youth members were told to salute wearers of it, showing the importance and reverence placed on women who had lots of children. The Lebensborn programme was started as a way of providing free nursery places and financial aid for women who had children with SS men. SS men being racially pure and ideologically driven, so clearly people that the Nazis wanted women to have children with. Later on, it changed a bit, and it became an organisation which encouraged single women to breed with SS men to create pure Aryan children. So sometimes outside of marriage, and sometimes a single SS man would have children with more than one woman to try and bulk up the nation. They also looked to sterilise women who they did not feel were appropriate for having children. So the sterilisation law of 1933 led to 320,000 women being sterilised for mental deficiency, ensuring that they could not have children and could not dilute the purity of the Aryan race. Another key area of the Nazis was in women and employment. Now, initially, they tried to use mostly propaganda to try and persuade women to act differently under the remit of Joseph Goebbels. Posters and speeches will encourage women to focus on the 3 Ks, Kinderkirche and Kirche, or children, kitchen and church. So this was trying to encourage women to stay at home, look after children, look after the food, looking after the men, and focus on the church. This was both a way of enforcing the Nazi ideals, but also a way of trying to reduce unemployment statistics because they stopped counting women as unemployed. They also introduced new policies to reduce the number of women at work. One particularly simple one was they limited university enrolment from women to 10% of the total entry to ensure that women could not get the qualifications the men had, and so could not take the same positions in the workforce. But they also started banning women from certain jobs. So in 1933, women were banned from professional jobs like teachers, doctors and civil servants. From 1936, no woman could become a judge or a lawyer or serve on a jury. Schoolgirls were trained for motherhood, not work. And in 1937, grammar schools for girls, which prepared them for university, were banned. Now we're going to look at how effective these are later on, but it's important to note that these policies were partly reversed in 1937 as the Nazis realised they needed more women in the workforce to help prepare for the likelihood of war. The Nazis didn't introduce any particular laws around women's appearance, but they did try and influence them as much as they could. They never forced women to look a certain way, but they ensured that in all their propaganda, women were in modest clothes, hair tied back in plaits or buns, and they're discouraged from dyeing their hair or wearing makeup. There's even some reports of women being discouraged from slimming or trying to lose weight, as they needed to have wide hips and be good for childbirth. So the last question we have to ask is, how effective were the Nazi policies towards women? Now, it's definitely true that some German women were persuaded by Nazi views, and fewer women certainly went to university. The birth rate increased and unemployment for men did go down. However, many women did not agree with the views, and that they degraded women and harmed the family. And since a lot of the things they were trying to achieve were through propaganda, it's quite difficult to know to what extent German people actually believed these views on women, or whether they just went along with the Nazi approach. While there was definitely impact, it was only minor or temporary. For example, as they got ready for war, the Nazis actually needed more women in work, and so many of their policies were reversed from 1937 onwards. In 1933, there were 5 million women in work in Germany. By 1939, it had increased to 7 million, showing that although there was a dip up to 1937 of women in work, it did not last, and actually it was soon reversed. So in summary, the Nazis had traditional views about women's role in the workplace, the home, and in bringing up children. They particularly wanted to increase the birth rate to make Germany stronger, to make sure they had a large army and could compete with other countries. They appointed a German women's leader, Gertrude Scholz-Klink, to carry out their policies, and she made sure she set up women's organisations and banned other organisations. They came up with a range of policies to encourage women to have children, such as marriage loans and the Mother's Cross. They also banned women from various workplaces and used propaganda to encourage traditional roles and appearance. However, these policies were not that successful, with more women in work in 1937 than had been in 1933. And ultimately, it's hard to really judge how much impact they had in the long-term history of Germany, or long-term views of women in Germany, due to the fact that a lot of the rules were temporary and a lot of the work they tried to do was through propaganda.